I've talked about how awesome in the past Matt Fraction's Hawkeye was. I've done that in the past, and I'm saying it again here, because finally they've released the third volume of Hawkeye, and I think next month they are unveiling Volume 4 for Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. The trades are very late. Well, obviously because the comic's taking a while. So, yeah, so I'm pleased to say that I absolutely loved this volume of Hawkeye, Volume 3, L.A. Woman. Now, this comic is more about... Now, it doesn't really collect... It only collects certain issues that make one consecutive story. And apparently that's what it's like, is that apparently Volume 3 does all the stories of what's going on with Kate Bishop, who, in the end of Volume 2, went out to... She drove out to California, to Los Angeles, to start her own career as a superhero away from Clint Barton. And what happens in Volume 4 is all the stuff Clint did apparently alongside his brother. So, in that regard, I think it's a very interesting setup of how they did that, because, again, they may be separate issues, but it kind of tells the story. It's in trade, it makes one consecutive story. It'd probably be confusing as all hell reading in separate issues, so you're probably better off reading it in said trade. So, anyway, so let's talk about this story. Like I said, this is about Kate Bishop's story of when she and Pizza Dog went out to Los Angeles to start their own life as a superhero. And it's not like with Daredevil. It's not like when when Daredevil goes to the West Coast and he had trouble, but he knew where to get his landing and whatnot. And whenever a new hero shows up in the West Coast, it's all cool and shit, and they get right to work and all that. No, it's a lot harder than it looks. It is much, much, much harder for Kate than what she originally thought. And I like how they kind of deconstruct the whole hero. How Fraction deconstructs the whole hero in a new location kind of thing. And, remember, Kate, she's only 18 years old. She may be a prodigal archer, and maybe even a better archer than even Clint is. She's still 18 and very headstrong. That's two things working against her. And the main villain for her is Madame Mask. Her main villain for this is Madame Mask. Now, if you guys remember in Volume 1, there was a two-part story in there where Clint Barton had to get a tape back that was linked to something that was linked to him, and everyone was making a bid to buy this tape that had Clint Barton, quote-unquote, killing some people, but then it turned out to be a ruse to protect some Navy SEALs who did go out and do something right. And, yeah, what Kate did in that volume was kidnap Madame Mask, and basically she kidnapped her and dressed up as her to protect Clint Barton. To protect Clint. Well, Madame Mask is kind of pissed off, and she honestly says the most insane way, this could have all been avoided if you looked under my mask. But nope, you had to be professional, and, if you knew who I was, I wouldn't have come after you. But you don't know who I am, so I'm going to show you the error of your ways. Also, you embarrassed me so much in Mandrapore, I'm going to destroy your life. And dear Lord, does Madame Mask destroy Kate's life. She just systematically destroys Kate's life. I like how Fraction took a pretty much C-list Iron Man villain and then made her a major kind of Hawkeye villain. I really like that. I also like how this ties into, just a little bit, I also like how this really ties into kind of Brian Michael Bendis' Moon Knight run. Because we do bring up Count Nefaria, and there is something else that's brought up from Bendis' Moon Knight run in here that I don't really want to spoil. It also kind of explains what Madame Masks and Count Nefaria have been up to in the West Coast, and what they've been kind of building to, and what's been making them all this money. And when you find out what it is, I'll give you a hint. It does something with the life model decoys, but it is so much more sinister than that. And also how it ties into Kate's family. I also like how Fraction brings up that dichotomy of, that family dichotomy between Kate and her father. Her father plays a major role in this, and it's going to play out through the rest of the comics. I know that much, is that it's going to play out through the continuing comics. Well, at least through Matt Fraction's run, because I do know Jeff Lemire is going to be taking over the Hawkeye series soon. He's going to be taking over once Matt Fraction ends his run, which I find interesting because Jeff Lemire is the same guy who did the Green Arrow run. So I find it funny that he's gone. He did he basically took over DC's Archer, and now he's going over to Marvel to do a story, to do comics on their resident Archer. I find that kind of funny. Anyway, so more or less, this kind of plays out like chapters in the story. Well, obviously it does. It's all issues. They're all like these one-and-done stories that have this big, overarching plot that doesn't come together till the end of the story. It's more or less about, Kate being a private investigator and how she really sucks at private investigating. She also makes kind of friends with a police officer, and I like how there's this joke where he says, where she meets this guy named Detective Claude, and he's like, "Look, you think we're going to be friends, and I'm going to be this hard exterior guy." And I love how it kind of picks apart the whole Batman and Gordon relationship without even saying it out loud. I love that. Among other things, it clearly shows that Kate is in over her head. She may come from wealth and whatnot, but she doesn't want that, nor does she want anything to do with her father, who is, for lack of a better word, kind of a bastard. And what I really like, Fraction really nails it on the humor in here. And there's so many likable characters that Kate wants to help, like a guy who his brother wants to leak music out on the internet just to spite him. And then there's a gay couple that is pretty much one of Kate's first businesses, her first case. And all she wants to do is help them get orchids for their wedding. And gets her another rogue in her gallery by the name of Flint Ward, a.k.a. the Weed Lord. Yeah. Also, the lackeys she has to fight are armies of bellhop boys. I am not joking. She has to fight bellhop boys in this comic. Let's also talk about the artwork done by Wu. I can't remember her name, but it's done by Wu. The artwork in here is really great. Like, it is like, wow, it is some super detailed sketching in here. I absolutely love the artwork done in here. I think it's... what I also like is that it still keeps up, and I'm going to say this, is because Marvel's been doing this lately, and maybe it's just me that maybe... I can't be the only one who's noticed it, but have anyone else noticed that a lot of Marvel's new books from their Marvel Now line have felt very Image comic-like? Like, not just artwork, but how they kind of do writing, and the panel styles and all that. It can't be just me who's been kind of noticing, like, they're having more of an independent comic feel. Especially if you read Matt Fraction's Hawkeye. It feels so much like that, like how the dialogue is set up, how the pacing is set up, how the artwork works out. They really, like, especially this comic, and again, this volume, L.A. Woman, really does hit that home, is that it feels very much like an Image, like you're reading an Image comic. So, yeah, it has a very independent feel, even though it's mainstream. I know that sounds really weird, and it doesn't make a lot of sense, but just read if you haven't read it yet, just go check it out. Among other things, I think that this comic is, it really shows how awesome of a character Kate is. If you've never read, like, the Young Avengers comics, you've never read the Young Avengers comics, and this is your first introduction to Kate, it really shows how awesome she can be. And most of the time, she isn't even able to use her bow and arrow. She just has to depend on her own wit against a person who vastly beats her out on terms of money and resources. But yeah, once again, I think Matt Fraction's Hawkeye is absolutely amazing, and I can't wait to get Volume 4. But anyway, once again, I hope you all enjoyed this, and yeah, I'm out.